Hey, hi everyone. Welcome back to Humans Behind HR. This is Saran Brahme. This is sixth episode, and welcome to another interesting episode of Humans Behind HR. I'm really glad to bring Jonas Prasanna this time. Uh, I've worked with him in past, and I think he's one of those HR professionals who has navigated different facets of HR. And I think he started with recruitment, then worked in the social recruiting, employer branding, then went on to do the HRBP, leadership development, and a lot of different things, right? And I think we all talk about career mobility, and HR is not just one part of HR. There are different parts to it. So I really look forward to learn from him about his journey, and how he navigated different parts and what was the motivation behind it. So, Jonas, welcome to Humans Behind HR. Can you introduce yourself to the listeners here?
Yeah, thanks very much, Sarang. It's very nice to be part of this conversation. It almost feels like we are having a regular chat like we do all the time. I don't think this is anything different. For your listeners, my name is Jonas Prasanna. I've been in HR for the last decade and a half, and navigated different aspects within HR, within recruitment, employer branding, leadership development. So really excited to share my journey with all of you and through this conversation.
Perfect, perfect. So, Jonas, I remember the first time we met was People Matters conference in Bangalore or Mumbai, where I guess you were presenting Philip's case study,
Yeah.
and that time you were part of recruitment, and now you're doing completely different work in with your current organization with global HR, and and in that you're doing a lot of different things. My question is how did this journey happen, and why did you? I mean, sometimes we talk about the T-shaped career versus different parts. So how did you choose to build different parts of HR rather than sticking to one? And what was your motivation behind this?
Yeah. So I'll just go a step back before I entered even the workforce. So there were a couple of considerations. One, unlike most, at least the majority of HR folks, they land into HR by accident, or their path takes them there. I was very clear I didn't want to study engineering, and medical degree was just too time consuming. So I said, okay, what's the next best option? And that was management. Actually, my parents were supportive of that. My mother wasn't so much because it is unknown territory, but that was extremely supportive. He said that at least you know what you don't want to do. And so when I took up, um, management, in undergrad, um, I had really wonderful professors, and they really inspired and said, what are the possibilities when it came to human resources, when it came to IR, um, and how you can really impact the organization. So that gave me the launch point or the trigger to actually get into HR. And I said from day one, I want to get into this profession. I was lucky, and I would use the word luck a lot in my journey because it plays a tremendous role uh, in terms of getting into Philips. And I got in through a management training program. So that kind of gave me a breadth of the different as parts of HR. So I joined. I was in a trainee program for 1 year. We did different rotations. So I got my very first assignment was in learning and development. And after learning and development, I had a chance to work with recruitment on lateral hiring, and then finally I got into HR business partnering. And I did that stint for about 3-4 years. And my manager told me something that really has impacted my entire life. He told me that once you get very comfortable in what you are doing, then you're not learning enough. And he told me, what is the one area where you think you would be least comfortable with? And that was, I told him, okay, recruitment is something that is quite daunting, talking to strangers. And keep in mind, you're just out of college. So he said, okay, take up recruitment. It will be a good exposure for you. It was not exposure; it was trial by fire, literally. Because you got this young guy who hardly has a few years of experience managing a team of quite experienced recruiters, and how do you handle that? You have recruitment pressures. So it was a crazy trial by fire. Luckily, we had good leadership in that, and they also saw the power of employer branding. And if you can recollect, Gautam Ghosh was there, Yashwant Mahadik was there as the country HR leader, and there were several other leaders as well. But primarily, it was Yash and his vision of how do you really transform the HR function, how do you transform the organization, that got me into the employer branding space. So that was an interesting part of the first part of my career into recruitment and branding. Then we met, we had our conversation, and I still recollect how you recruited me. You wanted to learn a little bit about employer. You wanted to know how Philips did the employer branding, and then you gave me this surprise at the end, saying that why don't you apply for an opportunity? So which was something that I wanted to do at that point of time. More so because one, it required me to relocate to Mumbai,
Okay.
which is something that I wanted to do. And that's also played an important role in terms of my career journey. If I just reflect at it, when I change a role, when I change a job, it has got to either be a change in location, or a change in role, or a change in industry. So that's how I've looked at my career, and when I make those changes, it should be a really drastic change. It might not work for everyone. I can say with a degree of caution that uh, this strategy is a high risk, high reward strategy. Um, but you should be comfortable with not knowing a lot of things and learning it along the way. So yeah, that's in a small snippet the first part of my journey.
Perfect. Before we move ahead, we normally ask all our offer speakers to complete this sentence, um, that I'm a human behind HR who, and kind of define in your words who you are. Can you do that as well, please?
Yeah, I would say I'm a human behind HR who makes others better. Um, so that would be my my mantra.
Okay. So when you say makes other better, can you elaborate on that? Is it through uh, from a talent development, talent engagement, learning perspective, or is it more about purpose-driven part of what you want to do?
Okay. So I would say making others better starts with creating those meaningful relationships. And if you approach those interactions with the objective that I want to create a meaningful relationship with X or Y Z person, then you approach it with trust. You approach it with that I want to share, and a lot of things. When you approach it from that situation, the other person can sense it, and they in turn reciprocate that. I also believe a lot of what we do in HR is look at new ways to solve old problems.
Mm.
Okay, the problem still exists whether you are moving across industries, across functions, but the dynamics in the organization, dynamics in the external environment is different. So we are constantly trying to look at new ways to solve these old problems. And through that partnership of creating meaningful relationships to trying to do things in a different way, we help each other grow.
Okay, okay, amazing. So, just going back to where you started, I think you came from HR to recruitment, then employer branding. And I think currently or maybe your previous roles as well, you kind of went back to the HRBP or started with HRBP role. So how did that transition happen? Was it motivated? Hey, I want to learn new things, and is that part of your bigger picture and future strategy? Where hey, I want to like have really more generalist kind of a view by learning different parts of HR and then maybe decide where I want to go, or was it, as you say, either a luck or your instinct, risk-taking instinct that no, I just want to really understand all parts of HR and then maybe make a mind after some time.
Yeah, it was more of a sandwich approach.
Hmm.
So if you look at it, I started as a HR generalist, then did a specialization, and then did a further specialization in employer branding, and then I said, okay, I've become a specialist in that. That is, people know me for that. Now, it's also important to know the other aspects, and it's been
Hmm.
some time since I've done the HR generalist thing. So it was actually very difficult to to get a HRBP role from employer branding or from talent acquisition, and I'm sure most people um, would face that situation. The thing that worked for me is I was able to translate some of the skills that I got in employer branding in terms of working with teams, working on projects, working with different stakeholders, in terms of the HR business partner work.
Hmm.
So I was able to translate that and say that I could also do this HR business partner. It's only about learning the processes, but the essentials, the essence of working with different stakeholders, ensuring business impact, all of those things are replicable skills. So
Hmm.
that's why I did this whole thing with Disney Plus. And earlier it was Hotstar, where I wanted to see what the startup environment was and how that kind of worked. And I like that, that journey in terms of it kind of gave you a scope to go into learning. It goes into talent management. It goes into total rewards, different places that you can branch out. So that was also my approach that um, look at it as a sandwich or a burger. You have different experiences that you kind of pile up, and then grow your career.
Okay, interesting. Burger or sandwich. Yeah, being a foodie, I can definitely relate to that, in maybe in a different way. So, in this journey, I mean, Jonas, I know you relocated from Bangalore to Mumbai. That was a transition. The role was different, and I think after that, again, you moved back to Bangalore. Obviously, you've been very active in the social circle. You're one of the social media influencers for HR. You navigated different parts. I think last 2 years again with COVID, with different scenarios were different. So, how did you manage the work-life balance? I think you've been blessed with two kids. I think that happened in last some few years. So, what really worked for you in this scenario, especially for someone who's been dealing with different again going back to different skill sets or applying that.
Yeah.
Can you give a little bit of glimpse to our listeners?
Yeah, well, so when it comes to work-life balance, what COVID has taught me is that um, you know what you're doing is ultimately for your family, and you need to
Hmm.
prioritize that.
Hmm.
Um, Before that, it was not so much, but after that, it is very much towards that. So, and it's not like we don't have time. So in what I'm currently doing, I kind of manage team members across different geographies. And there's a tendency to work 24/7
Hmm.
because you're online, you are kind of at home. But then there are blocks of time where I say to myself that I will purposely take rest, or I'll engage in activities with my kids. And I've created those as rituals. For example, in the mornings, me and my wife go for a walk, and that is very like that's sacrosanct for us. We have to go for the walk, otherwise our day doesn't start. And that's alone time that we get um,
Hmm.
uh, with each other. In the evenings, I make it a point to at least be with my kids, when they go and play. Not that I would actively play with them because now they are slightly older and they would like to play with their own friends. But I want to be there and just hear what and be part of that. And if I have to do that, then I have to flex my time.
Hmm.
I have to work later in the night or earlier in the morning. And especially if you have different regions, like for example, in the US, you have Far East, you have Europe, then I dedicate certain days to a region. So, say for example, Thursdays is for Europe. US is pretty much in the night. Tuesdays, for example, is for Far East. So then I have to wake up a little more earlier than usual. So that's how I kind of balance time, and then make sure during the day I take that rest.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Obviously, with HR, multitasking is, I think, kind of given skill. Now, Jonas, let's talk about skills. I think uh, you started with again LN. You talked about L&D recruitment, employer branding, now business partnering, right? So that means over the period of time, you have to also navigate not just different roles but different skills. Now, one, how do you do that? Lot of time and with a lot of interactions within HR and recruitment community, a lot of people say, "Hey, I don't have time to do
Mhm.
that," or there's already, at least for recruitment, there are a lot of times you have numbers pressure, or even for HR, hey, there's so much going on, and especially for last 2 years when
Mhm.
HR was also figuring out, what new employee engagement would do. But again, there is also future of work. I think some say it's already here. And there's a new wave of AI and Chat GPT, and that on the horizons, right? So how do you approach upskilling part, and how do you actually do it from a practitioner's view? Do you go to conferences? Do you do certifications? What really works, and what has really worked from your perspective?
The way I would approach, uh, I've approached upskilling myself is to, number one, communicate my intent with my manager or my
Hmm,
leader. And the way I do it is, I say that I can offer a lot more. That simple word, that simple action puts that seed in the leader's mind, saying that, I have more capacity. Um, I don't phrase it negatively, saying that I don't have enough work. I
hmm,
say that I can do more. And it's very important to use the right phrase. Now, what that does is it puts a thought in the leader's head saying that, why don't we give this person some work? And it puts pressure back on the leader, and it's subtle pressure, saying that I need to give this person some work.
hmm,
And for whatever work that they give, I say yes, I'm happy to do it. If I don't know, I will learn.
hmm,
Um, so I don't approach it saying that this is my core areas of expertise, and I'll only do this. And as a result of being able to work in different kinds of projects, it has helped me expand my skill sets. And so when you are in the process of creating a presentation, you have to research a lot of things. You have to look at industry materials. You have to see your videos. You have to listen to our podcasts, etc., um, to figure out the essence of what people are communicating and seeing how it is relevant in the context of your work. I also do another thing, and that is I run these ideas past a few people, whether they are connected or not connected to the project, just to get an external perspectives, because I might have a lot of things and assumptions in my mind. And when I put it to somebody who just has no clue about it, and typically it's my wife, if I get, and she gives the very, very, very direct and honest feedback, saying that, what are you talking about? You know, and so then I have to really make it that much more crisper.
hmm,
So that's number one. Second, organizations, especially large organizations, have development programs, have typo development paths. Most people um, don't apply for it, thinking I'm not good enough. Um, and that's something that I want people also to be aware that use whatever is there as as part of the organization and just give it a shot. Um, and I've been lucky to be part of a leadership development program in Boeing called the Leadership Next, where 200 people are kind of selected across the entire organization and given a career path. So some of the things that were there in this journey included things like managing people,
Mm.
managing sets of people. As a like a senior manager, managing a manager who manages teams of people. So that kind of gave you the exposure to what it takes to actually lead teams, not just lead people. The second thing was in terms of there is something called the immersive experience, where 6 months of your role, you get to work in a function that you have never worked before.
Mm.
So I chose total rewards. I said, I will never get this opportunity ever because typically total rewards guys are like, I started total rewards and I end with total rewards. So I said, I want to do total rewards. And I've been lucky again in total rewards because the person who was doing the role kind of left the organization at that point of time. So I got to get very hands-on with it. So I would say yes and uh, take up the job and then figure it out along the way. And obviously there will be people who will help you.
Perfect, perfect. But so I think great that your organization has been investing into you and providing opportunity to do it. But a lot of HR professionals may not get that kind of opportunity because it is dependent on your team or your organization, right? What are the things you think people can do by themselves when it comes to upskilling, when it comes to learning new things, without even if maybe there's organization support isn't there?
Yeah. So I would say there are a few things. There are problems everywhere. Okay.
Mm,
And people are always on the lookout to solve problems. And they would want people who can solve problems. So even in the work that you're doing, you need not necessarily wait for your leadership or manager to say there is a problem to solve. Can you do it?
mm,
Right? There are different avenues where you can just raise your hand and say, I see this as a challenge. Maybe I pilot it. And when you put those efforts in terms of just getting people together or working on a presentation or putting a proposal to management, you and I have worked on complex proposals to management saying that let's do this.
mm,
It's not based on somebody telling us we need to do it, but we are seeing this in the industry, and um, we think this could be something that we can be applicable here. Can we get leadership support? We ran our gamification idea with literally zero budget, so uh, so these are opportunities. Nobody told us to do
mm,
that.
mm.
So similarly, in the job or function that you are doing, there are countless opportunities. You you will need to open your eyes, and I'm sure organizations want problem solvers.
Mm.
So if you have the bandwidth, you have an idea. The max, what will happen is somebody tells you no, you can't do it, but then you've learned at least how to do it, right?
Correct, correct. And I'm pretty sure apart from, I mean, obviously to do that problem solve, I think you would agree to me, but that the passion also plays an important role, because
Yeah.
a lot of times you have to drive things by yourself where people may or may not be supportive of these new ideas. Great, great. So, Jonas, if you reflect back onto your journey till now, what has been that one memorable moment for you that stands out?
Hmm. Okay, so a memorable moment for me is something where I made the biggest impact. Uh,
Hmm.
so I would approach it from that angle.
Hmm.
So in 2021, when we had the second wave of COVID, we had about 400,000 cases every day, 3,500 deaths. It was a terrible time, and at that point of time, I got a text from a friend of mine saying that my local church required volunteers to actually help bury people who died of COVID. And you can imagine the situation then, all of us are scared to even go out for fear of catching
Yeah.
COVID. And I also had two small children at that time, who were with me. So I felt helpless at that point of time. So I reached out to my leadership and I told them, and especially our global engagement focal in Boeing, her name is Praveena. She's done fabulous work in terms of really helping the community. And I told Praveena, is there something that I can do? Okay, I want to do something, but I'm just based in home, but I really want to do something. And Praveena kind of heard me out, and she said something is coming in the works. Um, and after a week or two, she said that, what, Boeing is going to give a 10 million grant um, to India to build a COVID hospital. And I want you to be part of
Wow.
that team. And I was like, it was God sent. I was like, I went to my manager and I told, I want to be part of this. The work can wait, or I'll do the work in the side, but I have to be part of this initiative. And then we kind of worked with Praveena and her team. We had different partners. We had Selco, who was actually creating a COVID hospital, the structure. We worked with the government of India and government of Karnataka to identify land. And we had the hospital, and our approach to the hospital at that point of time, the biggest challenge was, how do we get oxygen, liquid oxygen
Mm,
to people?
mm,
Remember? And getting it through containers, through lockdown, all of these things is a challenge. So we put it on its head. We said that we'll build the hospital where the oxygen tanks are.
mm,
Okay, so we went to the Karnataka Power Transmission Corporation, and they had their main office in Yelahanka, and their main power plant where they had the oxygen cylinders.
mm.
And we built the hospital there. And that hospital was built in 25 days, flat, 25 days. And it's
Wow.
not a temporary structure. It is a hospital that can service patients for at least a minimum of 10 to 15 years. So, and my aha moment was, so I had one of the HR heads of a premium of a large scale multinational bank reach out to me and Praveena and said that, and when we shared the story about how we went about building the hospital and servicing that hospital, she asked, "Is this for your employees?" And Praveena very clearly said that it is for the community. So, I am most proud of being a small part of this entire project of building a COVID hospital in India. And again, I had no supply chain experience. I had no government relations experience, nothing. It was the most faraway thing from HR. But in that moment, you just step up and say, where can I support? Where can I help? And you just, go with the flow and support wherever you can.
What an amazing story, Jonas. I think this is where the human part of being in HR, I think, really comes out. And again, kudos to you and your team for doing such a terrific work. And I really hope a lot of people, while there is definitely a CSR part and all of it, but I think what you guys did wasn't just CSR, it is really out of humanity. So thank you
Yeah.
so much for sharing that. Okay, good. So, Jonas, we're coming to the last part of the conversation. This is where I do bit of coffee with Karan kind of a segment of rapid fire questions. So, don't think too
All
much.
right.
No. Yeah, so don't think too much. Just tell whatever comes to your mind, right? Okay.
Sure.
So, work from office or work from home?
Hybrid.
Okay, best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Uh, Bangalore or Mumbai?
Oh man, Bangalore is where I grew up. Mumbai is has a different vibe. I really enjoyed my time in Mumbai.
Okay.
So I can't make a choice between them. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Generalist or specialist?
Oh, I think I'm going to make a statement. I think the world belongs to generalists.
Okay. Okay. And last one is very very difficult. Okay, just kidding. Arsenal or Chelsea?
Chelsea any day, man. Chelsea
I
any
knew,
day.
I knew, I knew. Obviously, your T-shirt says that as well. Okay, perfect. So, Jonas, just a parting question, and I ask that to every guest. What is your what is your one advice to the HR community? Something that you have learned from your own experience, and something you want to tell.
Yeah. In our organization, we say a lot about seek, speak, and listen.
Hmm.
Um, and if if you see the words, they might seem very simple, but it's an extremely powerful mantra in terms of seeking different types of opinions, um, listening, which is equally important in terms of what people have to say, and then also being able to speak your mind,
Hmm.
and call out things. As HR professionals, we have a unique role in terms of we impact all parts of the organization. And if we approach our work from the seek, speak, and listen philosophy, or from that angle, I think we can truly add value not just to ourselves but to the organization.
That sounds perfect. So, thank you so much, Jonas, for being part of the conversation. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I do, and I have to say I'm really inspired by the words, and not just by the words, right? I mean, what you have done and what you have achieved. Um, I mean, if people want to connect with you, where can they connect and how?
Yeah, pretty active on LinkedIn. You'll see me posting on a regular basis there. On Twitter is also another way that you can reach out to me. Facebook and Instagram, not so much, but these two definitely there.
Perfect. So thank you all of you listeners. Hope you have enjoyed and learned a little bit from Jonas, just as me. Uh, Please let me know in the comments what you really loved about the conversation. If there are any other amazing humans behind HR that you want me to host on this podcast, I would love to do that. So with that, this comes to an end. Again, Jonas, thank you so much for taking some time and sharing amazing stories, and really hope to see you soon again.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Look forward.